So Josh, tell me about your goals for the session that you just led.
Well, the big goal is to get them the idea of what problem solving is and start to build that list of problem solving strategies so that throughout the week they can see those same strategies coming back again and again. So I think that went pretty well, that they started to see a lot of those fundamental strategies, especially doing an easier problem as a way of getting over that initial hump of, I don't know how to do this. Well, okay, do something else then that you do know how to do. And the other big goal was to start to establish the dynamic between the mathematicians and the middle school teachers and make sure that they're sharing their skills and their knowledge and not being too helpful of trying to have the mathematicians say, oh, look at this cool mathematics and look at this other piece, and getting all excited about things and then spoiling all the fun of the teachers being able to discover some of those things for themselves. And so keeping an eye on those dynamics and seeing how to keep the different groups doing their thing.
So how do you feel like it went overall?
I think it was pretty good. I think that the atmosphere stayed pretty positive and energetic, and a lot of groups had those big moments of discovery where people got really excited, and a lot of them were joint moments of discovery where a whole bunch of people were getting excited together about having shared their work and built something good out of it. I think there were a couple people here and there who felt a little bit left behind, so I'm a little bit worried about keeping an eye on them and making sure that they stay on board and feeling like it's a positive experience for them. But yeah, it seems like at least almost all, if not all, the groups have a good dynamic going, and people have a lot of energy and excitement for things, and got a lot of good positive feedback from the evaluation reflections at the end, particularly about letting different groups explore things in their own different ways and tuning into what they were doing so that they could get some support at following their own path. So I was pretty happy.
That's great. So is there anything that you feel like you would want to do differently next time you lead this session?
Yeah, well, this time I had a lot of good material to work with of the things that different groups and different people were doing, but I only used one of those people to come up to the board and share her ideas. So next time I'd be more careful about noting if there's something that I want to say and somebody's doing something similar enough to it to bring them up to do some of the talking instead of it being me saying the idea that somebody in the group already has found. So I think that would be one of the big differences. And I think there might be one or two things at the beginning that I could push a little bit faster of dropping some hints into so that the end can be a little bit more relaxed. But I think it's okay at the end to have a little bit of a, and here's some other cool things you might want to think about that, and make it clear everybody got, here's the central idea that we got. I think also different groups came to the solution different ways, and I didn't really do enough to share those different paths to get 101 factorial minus 1 out of it. So that might be a good reason to try to save a little time at the beginning, is to have time at the end for the different groups to say stuff about how they got their answer.
What kind of advice do you have for somebody who was going to lead this session?
Yeah, I think the huge thing is getting that list of problem-solving strategies out there. And so if you have more time than I have here, finding some small problems to illustrate each of the strategies you go through. I showed one for wishful thinking and so forth, but having more to show a little bit more about what the strategy means instead of having just the one example in this problem of the strategy showing up. But that's the main preparation to do, is to make sure you have that list in mind and that you're ready to point out, okay, here's this moment where we're using this strategy, and here's what we can discover if we think about this strategy, and here's where you're not doing an easier enough problem and you need to be more greedy and do a super easy problem and not be shy about, oh, this is too babyish or whatever. You have to do the easy problem,
Right.
So being prepared with that list of strategies and illustrating where they come up or showing what you can discover with them, that's really at the core of the thing. I mean, even if they don't ever get to 101 factorial minus 1 as the answer, that's fine as long as they saw that they could make progress toward the answer with the strategy.
Right.
And I think the other thing is, I feel like there is a lot of value in setting the situation of here's this magic function machine, and then letting the participants suggest the questions. They'll almost always come up with plenty of good questions for you to explore.
Right.
Almost always somebody will ask the question of what's on the one final card at the end. Maybe before that period, there should be a little bit more letting them play around with the machine so that they can start to notice some things, and then you can maybe even collect that of what have you noticed about this machine? What do you wonder about this machine? And then they can start to tell you some of those observations that they've already made on their own before they have a guiding question to focus it down. But I think that's a really good piece of it, is to have that, have them be the ones asking the questions, or at least asking some of the questions, instead of it all being, here's the problem, now go work on it. Yeah, so those would be my big piece of advice. Keep that list of problem-solving strategies in mind. Keep pointing back to it again and again and again. And do that piece of problem posing too.
Great, thanks so much.
Well,
Is there anything
I think that's good.
extra that you wanted to say?
That feels good to me.
Yeah.